The sun had already begun its slow descent behind jagged cliffs, painting the barren landscape with streaks of orange and red. The air was thin, dry, and tasted faintly of metal, a remnant of the mining operations that humans had abandoned years ago. Dr. Elias Harper, medic and field scientist, moved carefully over the rocky terrain. His suit's sensors beeped softly as he scanned the area for any signs of life. This mission had been routine, or at least it was supposed to be, but something felt off from the moment their transport had touched down. A flicker of movement caught his eye. He froze, instinctively reaching for the medkit strapped to his belt. Ahead, partially hidden among jagged rocks, a figure stirred. At first, Elias thought it was a trick of the light, but then he saw her, an alien lying on the ground, her body trembling with pain. Her skin shimmered faintly in the fading sunlight, like liquid silver flowing over muscle, and intricate markings glowed along her arms and neck. Her eyes, large and dark, opened slowly, revealing intelligence and fear in equal measure. Elias approached cautiously, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. The alien did not speak, but her gaze followed him, unblinking and piercing. He knelt beside her, checking for visible injuries. Her left shoulder was badly torn, the tissue beneath the skin exposed and raw. He had never treated anything like this before, but training kicked in. "Hey, it's okay. I'm a medic," he said gently, unbuckling his med kit. He took out sterilizing gel and bandages, his fingers trembling slightly despite years of experience. The alien flinched as he touched her wound, and he froze, giving her space. Her voice, soft and musical, finally cut through the quiet air. "Human, do you know I'm no ordinary alien?" Elias blinked. He hadn't expected her to speak, let alone in understandable common. I don't," he admitted, unsure how much to reveal. "But I'm going to help you." Her gaze softened, and for the first time he saw a flicker of trust. Carefully, he began cleaning her wound, applying antiseptic with the precision of someone who had saved countless lives. Despite her size and the evident strength in her limbs, she remained still, allowing him to work. Every now and then, she let out a small hiss or whisper, a sound that seemed almost musical, and Elias realized she was studying him just as much as he was studying her. "You heal quickly," she said after a moment, "but not like this." "I'm human," he said simply, adjusting the bandage. "We try." She tilted her head, a gesture that reminded him of a curious child. There was something in her expression, a mixture of pain, curiosity, and respect, that unsettled him. She was clearly powerful, yet vulnerable, and it made him more determined to help her. The sound of distant engines cut through the silence. Elias froze, listening. The alien stiffened beside him. "They are coming," she said, her voice low. "You must hide." Elias glanced around. The terrain was rough but offered little cover from detection systems that advanced alien technology likely used. Still, instinct told him to move quickly. He helped her to her feet, supporting her weight carefully. Despite her injuries, she moved with surprising grace, almost gliding across the rocky ground. As they crept toward a narrow canyon, she spoke again. "You are not like the others. They would have shot without thought." "I try not to shoot first," Elias replied with a small, ironic smile. "It usually works better." Her eyes softened briefly at his humor, then returned to focus. Humans unpredictable, interesting. The canyon narrowed, forming a natural tunnel between jagged cliffs. Elias led her inside, using rocks and shadows to conceal their presence. His heart pounded in his chest. Despite the danger, a strange connection was forming between them, a silent understanding that went beyond language. "Why are they after you?" he asked cautiously, keeping his voice low. "They want my power," she replied, her tone tight with pain and fear. "To control the galaxy." Elias swallowed hard. He had encountered hostile alien species before, but nothing like this. The sheer scale of what she implied made his mind reel. "And what power is that?" he asked, careful not to sound incredulous. "You would not understand," she said, her eyes flashing with intensity. But I must survive, and you may help." They moved further into the canyon, the fading light making her glow more pronounced. Elias couldn't help but marvel at her beauty and strength, even in her injured state. Her markings pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat visible on the outside. She was mesmerizing, unlike any being he had ever seen. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Sensors on his suit screamed warnings, approaching ships, low altitude, scanning the surface. Elias' pulse quickened. He scanned the canyon walls for options. There was a narrow side path, barely large enough for the alien to squeeze through. He guided her carefully, helping her down jagged rocks. Her trust in him grew as he navigated the dangerous terrain, each step reinforcing the fragile bond forming between them. "You are human," she said again, almost to herself. "Yet capable." Elias offered a small shrug. "We survive, that's what humans do." A sudden flash of light illuminated the canyon. One of the alien ships was searching for them, scanning with a relentless precision that made Elia's stomach churn. "We need to move," he whispered urgently. She nodded, placing a hand briefly on his shoulder. Her touch was surprisingly warm, and he felt a rush of reassurance. "Lead human, I follow." They moved quickly, each step bringing them closer to safety but also deeper into unknown territory. Elia's mind raced with questions: who she really was, what her power meant, and why she had singled him out for trust. Yet the immediate concern was simple: survive. As they rounded a bend, the alien suddenly stopped, her eyes narrowing. "Listen," she whispered. Elias froze, straining to hear. A low hum echoed through the canyon, the vibration of advanced propulsion systems. The pursuers were close. Elias glanced around, searching for an escape route. He spotted a small crevice, barely visible but deep enough to hide them temporarily. He guided her inside, pressing her gently against the rocky wall. Her body was tense, but she did not resist. "They will search every corner," she said quietly. "We must be clever or die." Elias nodded, adrenaline sharpening his focus. He set his medkit down, quickly rigging a simple alert system using small rocks and reflective panels. It wouldn't stop them, but it might buy enough time. She watched him with intense interest, as if analyzing his every move. "You think like a predator," she murmured, almost admiringly. "Clever for a human." He allowed himself a small grin. "We have to be. Otherwise, we don't last long." Hours passed as they stayed hidden, the alien leaning against him slightly for support. She began to speak more freely, her broken common revealing bits of her history, her lineage, her responsibilities, the enemies who sought to use her. Each word painted a picture of a galaxy far larger and more dangerous than Elias had imagined. Despite her warnings, there was a warmth in her presence, a curiosity that mirrored his own. She asked questions about humanity, their planet, their technology. Elias answered as best he could, fascinated by her perspective. In her eyes, humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and strangely beautiful in their flaws. As night fell, Elias finally allowed himself to relax slightly, though he remained alert. He helped her settle against the rock, checking the bandages on her shoulder once more. Her glowing markings pulsed faintly, a rhythm that seemed almost like breathing in the dark. "You have saved me," she said softly. "Few would do this." "I'm a medic," he replied simply. "It's what I do." She studied him in silence for a long moment, her gaze intense and unyielding. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "Human, you do not know. I am no ordinary alien, and yet I trust you." Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. Trust from a being so powerful, so mysterious, was not something he had expected to receive or earn. But in that moment, he understood something fundamental about humans and aliens alike. Connection could bridge even the widest gaps in the galaxy. The night deepened around them. Stars shimmered above, alien constellations unfamiliar to human eyes, yet somehow comforting. The canyon offered temporary safety, but the danger outside never left. Elias knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, perhaps life-threatening ones. Yet in the quiet darkness, with the alien leaning slightly against him, he felt a rare sense of purpose and hope. Somewhere in the vast galaxy, forces far greater than either of them were moving, but for the moment, survival depended on two unlikely allies, a human medic and a being who was no ordinary alien. Together, they had a fragile chance to face what came next, and maybe, just maybe, they could change the course of events in ways neither fully understood. As he closed his eyes briefly to rest, Elias whispered to himself, "We survive because we must." And the alien, hearing his words, allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile, her glowing markings flickering like a heartbeat in the dark. Dawn broke over the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the canyon floor. Elias Harper stirred from his brief rest, muscles aching from the tension of the previous night. The alien beside him, still leaning lightly against the rock, moved with cautious grace, her markings pulsing faintly with the new light. Though she was stronger than most beings he had encountered, it was clear her injuries still slowed her. "Are they gone?" she asked, her voice low and careful. Elias shook his head, scanning the canyon. The faint hum of distant engines reached them intermittently, a constant reminder that the danger was far from over. "They're still out there," he said, "but for now, we have a little time." She studied him, her large, dark eyes reflecting curiosity and cautious admiration. "You humans, small, fragile, yet you survive in ways we do not expect. Clever." Elias smiled faintly. "We adapt, that's what we do best." Her gaze softened slightly, but there was tension in her shoulders. She knew the threat was imminent. "I am not like other beings. They seek me to control me, to use me. You are human, yet you help." "Why?" Elias hesitated. Humans had a complicated history in the galaxy, often underestimated, sometimes feared, but he answered honestly. "Because I have to. It's what I am trained for. And I don't see you as something to control. I see you as someone in need of help." The alien's markings flickered with a faint glow. "Few think like this. Most would shoot first." As the day began, Elias quickly realized that staying in the canyon would not be safe. The alien helped him identify a safer route, a series of narrow ridges and overhangs that would conceal them from aerial scanners. He noticed her agility, even with her wound. She could move faster than any human, yet she deferred to him in making decisions about the path. "You are patient," she observed, "and careful. Few creatures like you are both." "I've learned patience can save lives," he replied, adjusting his med kit. He also prepared a few simple traps, rock and reflective panels, small devices to detect movement, anything that could buy them precious seconds if they were pursued. She watched, fascinated, studying the human methods with a mixture of curiosity and incredulity. The canyon gave way to a narrow ridge that led toward an abandoned mining outpost. Its metallic structures were rusted and silent, but the labyrinthine hallways and shadowed corners promised temporary safety. Elias led her through the remnants of human industry, finding small areas where she could rest without exposing herself to the sky. As they paused, the alien's voice broke the quiet. "Tell me about Earth, about your people." Elias hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "We are diverse, creative, curious. We fight and we build. Sometimes we fail, but we keep trying. That's what I want you to know. That's humanity." She tilted her head, absorbing his words. "Curious, dangerous, resilient." Her gaze lingered on him. "You survive because you adapt. You use what you have to overcome." "Yes," he said simply. "Sometimes it's the only choice." The silence that followed was heavy but not uncomfortable. Elias could sense her examining him, not just his actions but his reasoning, his emotions, the subtle ways he moved and reacted. She was unlike any being he had ever encountered. Her species might have had strength and advanced technology, but it was her intelligence and perceptiveness that made her formidable. Suddenly, the ground beneath them vibrated, a warning he had come to recognize. Pursuers. He glanced at the alien. She nodded, her body already preparing for movement. He realized she could likely outrun most of their enemies even in her injured state, but she had allowed him to plan and guide their escape. They moved swiftly through the outpost's skeletal structures, using narrow corridors and shadowed alcoves to stay out of sight. Elia's rigged improvised alarms, loose panels that would shift if stepped on, small reflective surfaces that would catch incoming sensors. They were minor obstacles, but he hoped they would confuse or delay anyone hunting them. Humans, inventive, she said, watching his improvisations. We rely on strength and speed. You rely on thinking. Clever, he shrugged. Thinking can save you when speed isn't enough. Hours passed as they navigated the ruins. The alien began to relax slightly, leaning more on him for support. They spoke more freely now, exchanging fragments of culture, history, and experience. She described the galaxy's political structures, factions of power, and her own lineage, a line of beings who had been tasked with guarding an ancient secret that could shift the balance of entire star systems. Elias listened intently, fascinated but careful not to overwhelm her with his own knowledge of humanity. His mind raced with questions. Why had she revealed herself to him? Why trust a human when countless others might have killed on sight? Yet the bond they had formed in the canyon gave him a measure of confidence. They were partners for now, bound by necessity and growing trust. As night fell, the outpost offered temporary concealment, but the sound of distant engines reminded them that safety was fleeting. Elias and the alien found a sheltered room inside a partially collapsed structure. He checked her wound again, ensuring the bandages were secure, and she watched him with quiet intensity. "You heal me," she said softly. "Not just the body, but hope. Few give hope without asking power or advantage." "It's what humans do," he replied simply. "We try to help." Her markings pulsed faintly in the dim light. "I underestimated you," she admitted. "I thought humans weak, fragile, but you are resourceful." "I guess we survive in ways others can't predict," Elias said, adjusting the last strap on her shoulder. The night passed slowly. They spoke little, conserving energy and focus, but the connection between them deepened. Elias realized that her words about power and lineage were more than bragging. They were warnings. Their enemies would not relent, and she was valuable enough to provoke relentless pursuit. Yet in her presence, he felt a spark of something beyond duty, a fascination with her species, a desire to understand them, and a recognition that humanity had unique strengths worth protecting. Dawn approached again, and Elias knew it was time to move. He surveyed the ruined outpost, noting narrow escape routes and high vantage points. He helped the alien to her feet, adjusting his pace to match hers. Despite her abilities, she relied on him for guidance, and he accepted the responsibility with quiet determination. "You trust me," she said. "I have not allowed trust before, not like this." "I earned it and you earned mine," Elias replied. "We need each other." They moved through the rocky terrain, avoiding open areas and sticking to shadows. Elias used every trick he knew, misdirection, stealth, and ingenuity to outmaneuver sensors. The alien observed, learning quickly. She started adapting her movements to match his strategies, complementing his human ingenuity with her species, natural speed and awareness. Their bond grew stronger with every step. Elias realized that humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, not because they lacked strength, but because they relied on creativity, empathy, and adaptability, the traits that now allowed him to guide a powerful alien through deadly terrain. Hours later, they reached a narrow canyon exit leading to a small valley. Elias paused, examining the landscape. It offered some cover but also exposed them to aerial scans. He looked at the alien, her expression tense but trusting. "We'll make a path," he said. "Follow my lead." They moved carefully, using natural cover, quick reflexes, and improvised traps. When a scouting drone appeared above, Elias triggered a reflective panel, diverting its sensors. The alien watched in awe as a simple human trick created a momentary advantage against advanced technology. "Impressive," she murmured. "Few could do this." "Humans survive by thinking," he said, "not just fighting." By evening, they reached a small cave nestled against a cliff face. It offered temporary shelter and a vantage point for planning their next move. Elias allowed the alien to rest, tending her wounds and providing a simple meal from his supplies. "You are different," she said softly. "Not like others. I did not expect alliance." "Humans are unpredictable," he said with a faint smile, "sometimes in good ways." She studied him in silence, then nodded. "You understand more than most. Perhaps this is why I trusted you. Perhaps humans are more than I believed." The night passed with quiet conversation, shared glances, and a growing understanding. Elias felt a strange sense of pride and responsibility. This alien, powerful and unique, had chosen to trust him and humanity in some way. He knew that their survival depended not just on his medical skills or her strength, but on their ability to think, adapt, and work together. As dawn approached, Elias prepared to move again. He checked her bandages, ensuring they were secure. The alien watched, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of early light. "You believe in humans," she said quietly. "I believe in survival," he replied, "and in helping those who need it." Her markings flickered faintly. "Then we survive together." Outside, the first rays of sun painted the valley in shades of gold. The danger had not passed, but they had proven something important. Humans, small and seemingly fragile, could use ingenuity, empathy, and courage to stand alongside the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And for the alien, that realization was as remarkable as the human beside her. They moved out of the cave, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their enemies were relentless, and the galaxy was vast and unforgiving, but Elias knew one thing with certainty. Humans had a way of surviving and thriving, even when the odds seemed impossible. And now, with an extraordinary ally at his side, they had a chance to prove it again. The valley was quiet, but the air was tense. Elias Harper and the alien moved cautiously, keeping low against the rocky terrain. From the cliffs above, the hum of approaching ships reminded them that danger was near. Despite the exhaustion etched into both of them, there was a shared determination in their movements. They had survived so far through clever thinking, trust, and adaptability, and now the ultimate challenge awaited. "You are ready?" the alien asked, her voice low but steady. Elias nodded. "We have to be," he said. "We can't run forever." She studied him, her large eyes reflecting both fear and admiration. "Humans, you think differently, clever, unpredictable. I can rely on you." Elias smiled faintly, though tension tightened his chest. "We survive because we adapt. Let's use that." They climbed a narrow ridge to gain a vantage point over the valley floor. Below, the alien pursuers had landed, their forces larger than Elias had expected. Sleek, metallic ships and armored units moved with precision, scanning for life. The alien beside him tensed, her glowing markings pulsing with anticipation. "They are many," she said, "too many to fight head-on." Elias surveyed the terrain, searching for opportunities. He noted natural choke points, collapsed structures, and rocky overhangs. He could use these to force their enemies into disadvantageous positions. "We don't fight them the way they expect," he said. "We use the land and we use our brains." Her gaze lingered on him, a mix of curiosity and cautious hope. "You lead. I follow your plan." They descended the ridge carefully, slipping through shadows and narrow pathways. Elias set small traps, loose rocks that would fall if triggered, reflective panels to confuse sensors, and rigged outposts with improvised alarms. The alien watched closely, learning from him, her movements complementing his strategies. She could strike with precision when necessary, but Elias relied on ingenuity to create opportunities. As they reached a natural choke point between two cliffs, Elias paused. "This is it," he said. "We make our stand here. They come through this path, they face traps and obstacles. You follow my lead and we can turn the tide." The alien nodded, her body glowing faintly. "I trust you." Hours passed as the pursuers approached. Elias remained calm, directing her movements, adjusting traps, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. He marveled at how adaptable she was, even in her injured state. Her powers were formidable, but she deferred to his planning, a testament to human ingenuity and trust. When the first scouts appeared, Elias triggered the traps. Rocks tumbled down the cliffs, sensors were misdirected, and the scouts were momentarily thrown into disarray. The alien moved swiftly, incapacitating those who bypassed the obstacles with precision. Together they formed an unexpected force, human creativity guiding extraordinary alien ability. One of the pursuer ships fired a scanning beam, sweeping the area. Elias held his breath, signaling the alien to stay low. Using reflective surfaces and the shadows of rocks, they avoided detection. The alien's eyes glimmered with admiration. "Humans, you think like no others. Clever, dangerous." Elias chuckled softly. "We survive because we think differently. That's our advantage." The main force descended, larger and more organized. Elias realized they could not hold them off indefinitely, but he had one plan left. Using his knowledge of terrain, he led the alien to a narrow canyon that had a hidden overhang. The path above was unstable. If triggered, it could collapse and block the pursuers entirely. "This is risky," he said, "but it might give us the upper hand." She studied him closely, her gaze assessing both his courage and the logic behind his plan. "I trust you. We do this." They positioned themselves strategically. Elias set the final improvised triggers while the alien watched, ready to strike. When the pursuers advanced into the canyon, Elias triggered the collapse. Rocks crashed down, creating a temporary barrier and scattering the forces. The alien moved with incredible speed, disabling enemies who had bypassed the obstacles. Elias directed her, signaling which routes to take, where to block, and when to conserve energy. Every move they made was coordinated, their trust and understanding of each other evident. Despite the odds, the pursuers began to retreat, realizing they were being outmaneuvered. Elias and the alien had turned what seemed like an impossible situation into a controlled battlefield. She moved beside him, her glowing markings pulsating faster, reflecting both her energy and her awe at human ingenuity. "You, humans, are remarkable," she said, her voice full of admiration. "I underestimated you. You adapt, survive, triumph." Elias smiled, sweat and dirt streaked across his face. "We survive because we have to, and we have each other now." The remaining forces, recognizing the futility of direct confrontation, began to retreat. Elias and the alien lowered their guard slightly, though their vigilance remained. She turned to him, her expression softening. "You saved me, not just from them but from despair. Few would care enough to risk themselves." "It's what humans do," he said simply. "We try to help, and we don't give up." As the sun rose higher, painting the valley in gold, the alien stood beside him, fully healed and glowing with renewed strength. She had watched human ingenuity in action and witnessed firsthand the combination of courage, creativity, and adaptability that defined humanity. "I believed my lineage alone would protect me," she admitted. "I thought power, strength would decide survival. But you proved differently. Cleverness, empathy, adaptability, these are your weapons." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "Humans have survived against odds that should have destroyed us. That's why we keep going. That's why we adapt. That's why we succeed when others underestimate us." For a long moment, they stood in silence, observing the valley and the retreating forces. Elias felt a strange sense of accomplishment, not from defeating enemies, but from proving that human traits could match and even surpass raw power in certain situations. She reached out, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Human, you have shown me the truth. Not all beings are equal, not by strength alone. Your species is extraordinary." Elias met her gaze, understanding the weight of what she said. Humans were often underestimated, dismissed as weak or fragile. Yet in the galaxy, their ingenuity, courage, and empathy were unparalleled. They survived because they adapted, because they thought differently, because they refused to give up. "You changed my perspective," she continued. "I will not forget. I will speak of humans as they deserve: powerful, resilient, clever." The two of them moved down the valley, carefully avoiding the last patrols. Elias realized that the bond they had formed was stronger than any alliance he had known. It was based on trust, mutual respect, and the recognition of what each brought to the table. Humanity had survived because they relied on intellect, empathy, and courage, and now an extraordinary alien understood that truth. As they reached a vantage point overlooking a distant starfield, she turned to him one last time. "Human, you survived. Not by strength, not by weapons, but by everything that makes your kind unique. You are extraordinary." Elias smiled faintly, the tension of the past days slowly giving way to relief. "We survive because we must, and because we help each other. That's humanity." The alien's markings shimmered softly in the fading sunlight. "Then, humanity is remarkable. And I am grateful to have met you." For a moment, the galaxy seemed vast and quiet, but the impact of their survival was profound. They had faced overwhelming odds, yet through clever thinking, empathy, and courage, they had not only survived but had proven that human traits could stand alongside the most powerful beings in existence. Elias felt a deep sense of pride, not in his own abilities, but in the species he represented. Humans had survived and adapted through centuries of challenges, and now an alien of great power had seen that resilience firsthand. Together, they continued toward safety, moving with purpose. The galaxy was still full of dangers, and enemies would return, but Elias knew one thing with certainty. Humans had something no one could predict, no one could replicate, and that was why they endured. Creativity, courage, and empathy were their weapons, and they would continue to shine in a universe that often underestimated them. The alien glanced at him one last time before they disappeared into the rocky horizon. "Human, you have shown me hope. You have shown me humanity." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "And you have shown me the universe is bigger than we know, but together we can face it." As the sun fully rose, bathing the valley in golden light, two unlikely allies moved forward. One human, one extraordinary alien, bound by trust, ingenuity, and the shared knowledge that even in the darkest moments, humanity had the ability to survive, adapt, and triumph. And in that quiet victory, the galaxy had witnessed what humans had always known, that they were far more than their physical limits suggested. The future remained uncertain, but Elias Harper and the alien he had saved walked into it with a shared understanding. Humans were clever, unpredictable, and resilient, and that was a force no enemy could ever fully anticipate.